はい。それではお時間になりましたので、これよりセッションの方を開始いたします。次は壮大な話ですね。それでは、クリスチャン・レンティーノさんによる PHP からスカラへ私の経験です。どうぞよろしくお願いします。
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm Kristian, and this is my first public talk ever, so bear with me, please. Today, I'm going to discuss about my experience coming from a programming language such as PHP, which is really difficult and different from Scala. And I will try to explain a little bit what features I really liked personally about Scala coming from PHP. But first of all, I was curious how many of you have used PHP? Oh, a lot. So I'm not alone. Okay, a lot of people. Perfect. Let's talk a little bit about me. I'm Christian. I'm from Italy, and I have a lot of interest from Japan, so like anime and manga and music. And to start this topic, I want to talk about, first of all, the training. So in 2022, I switched company, and with company, I changed also the programming language. So I was working for 3 years with PHP, and in 2022 I started working with Scala, and they gave me budget, so I needed to find quality resources to start because I think that in every aspect of the life, when you want to learn something, you need to learn something from some quality resources. So what I found some resources which I really recommend. I created a small GitHub repo. You can scan the QR code and it should open the repository. So yeah, there is a list, but for the sake of the time, I will mention only the first one. So Rock the JVM, I think, is the best one to learn not only Scala now, but mainly Scala. It has both free stuff on YouTube. You can find on YouTube, for example, Scala at Speedlight. I think it was the playlist name. So you can get your hands on the basics of Scala. And if you want to, he has also paid courses on his website. So yeah, these are the resources. And this is a disclaimer. Since this is my experience, a lot of things I will say are opinionated, are my thoughts about some features. So maybe some of you won't agree on some things, but yeah, we can discuss later on the after part if you want. The first feature that I really loved coming from PHP was obviously the option. The option is a really nice concept that in PHP, unfortunately, I didn't have. So a lot of null pointers in productions and a lot of errors at runtime. And it has a lot of advantages, in my opinion, and it doesn't make sense in Scala to not use it and use the null. I think it's a really bad practice. You can handle the absence or the presence in a really elegant way, a type-safe way. You can pattern match on an option. Since it's an option monad, you can pattern match, you can do the for comprehension and map together the values, like in the simple example which I created. And first of all, is a functional approach. So it has all the benefits of it, like the referential transparency. And together with the option, we will see an example combined with the pattern match. This is me when I first find out about the pattern match. I really love that first site. So I created a small example combining the power of pattern matching and the option. But first of all, let's see a little bit the advantages of it. So we can improve a lot the readability in some cases, and we can have type safe out of the box with pattern matching. For example, we can have the exhaustiveness checking on the enums or the case classes with the sealed traits. So out of the box, we have a really type safe application, which in PHP I could only dream of. So yeah, this is a really basic example. But later, since I'm a manga fan, I created an example with One Piece. So Since I'm going to show you about the option and the case class power with pattern matching, I created a simple case class with a one-piece character, which has a surname, a mid-name, which is an option, so could be present or not, sorry, and a name. So then later we've created a list of one-piece characters. So we have some Monkey D. Luffy, Roronoa Zoro, and so on. And if you follow One Piece, you know that there are some special guys with the D in the name. So I want to retrieve only those guys. So it's easy, like you see, it's almost like reading a sentence. We are iterating over the list of One Piece character and using a collect method. And with the collect method, we are extracting against the exact value of the property of the case class. So if the mid name is exactly d dot space, we return the name of the character. So by printing the list, we can see Luffy and Low, which are the only ones with the D in the mid name. So this is very powerful, and pattern match allows a lot of cool stuff that I didn't have the time to show, but it's really powerful feature. Another really cool feature was about the infix notation, which is a really simple feature, but it's nice, it's elegant in my opinion. It basically allows us to use methods without parentheses if the method accepts only one parameter. So I use it a lot, and also the libraries use it a lot in the testing. So in my opinion, especially in testing, it's really straightforward, and you can understand at first glance what are the assertion of the test. So this is a really basic example, but response.field should not be empty. I've read it like a sentence, so you know what is the criteria for this test to pass. So really straightforward. We have also an example with a list. We have defined a list from 1 to 5, and we are checking that it should contain the same element as another list. So in this example, I just hard-coded the list, but we could have a lot of stuff like that. So moving forward, we have also the fact that Scala is concise, and I think it's due to the fact that it's a functional programming language, mainly. So this is the shortest form which I talked of about creating a list of numbers in PHP from 1 to 100. We are going to find the even ones, so array filter is quite straightforward, and then we are just summing them to obtain the sum of the even numbers. But this took us 3 lines. With Scala is really simple. It's just one-liner. So we are going to create a list from 1 to 100. We are going to filter on it, and we are going to find the even numbers. And the filter method returns a list with only the even numbers, and then we are going to sum it. So really straightforward and really concise. And last but not least, a hot topic in Scala, I think, are implicits for Scala true or given for Scala 3. Scala implicits are basically a kind of dependency injection where we are defining implicit values that the compilers injects automatically at compile time in our code. So basically, we can create a lot of generic utilities and methods like the circle area, which basically accept a radius and do the math calculation. And if you notice in the call, we aren't passing the pi. Why? Because the pi is defined as an implicit. So the Scala compiler knows automatically that he needs to search, for a double implicit. It finds it, so it will automatically inject the pi variable inside the second argument list. So this will automatically calculate the circle area. And in Scala 3, this is almost the same. It's less boilerplate. It's self-explanative. So I think it's not worth to mention any other things. And I really like to use implicits or given for the open-close principle. So I like to use the implicits to extend our code without modifying it. So we have an example where we are extending the string class and we are defining a new method of the string class in a way that we are returning the first letter of the string to uppercase and the last one. So you can see Kristian Lentino dot first and last to upper, and the result is just KO. So this is a nice way, for example, to extend the behavior of some libraries or some internal utilities or even the primitive types that Scala offers. So it's a lot of great powers, and like always, great powers comes with responsibility. We will say later. Uh, this is the Scala 3 syntax. So yes, like the implicits, it has less boilerplate, but it's the same, the behavior. Let's see some pros and cons, in my opinion, about the implicits. Implicits can be very useful to reduce the duplication and the readability and usability of our code, because we can create very generic libraries which works very well on our code base. It's really easy to develop very generic libraries. We can extend our classes and give them the superpowers, and they have improved a lot in the Scala 3 version. But it has some cons. So yeah, if we are not cautious about them, we can transform our code in a big mess. Why? Why? If we go back, I'm using a double here, an implicit double, and I think it's a bad practice. I put on purpose. Why? Because if we have another double implicit, we don't know which one will be injected if we are not cautious about that. Maybe it could inject a wrong value. So the good behavior here should be encapsulate our pi in a case class, for example. So with a case class with a value property, where here it lies the double, so that our implicits is a case class pi, is not just a double, and we are sure that it will inject a pi in our method. Okay. Yeah, too many magics behind the hood. So yeah, it depends on the code base, but if we are using them too much, I think, and we are not very good at working with them, we risk to have a lot of implicits happen without us noticing. So be always cautious about that. And unfortunately, migration is not so trivial. So migrate from the implicits to the given will be challenging in some cases. And that's it for the implicits. Probably a lot of stuff, for a lot of informations. So I want to recap a little bit, and I want to give you some talks about both the PHP world and the Scala world. So PHP, in my opinion, is really easy to use and to understand. The learning curve is lower compared to Scala, and in I will not say 10 minutes, but in a few time you can get PHP running and you can do a lot of stuff. Scala, it's harder. At least for me, I took more time to understand it because it has some also mathematical concept like monads and so on. Uh, in Europe, it has PHP has a lot of job offers, and in Scala, it's difficult. It's more difficult currently. PHP has a very large community. It works really well, and I think one of the best framework ever is Laravel, and it is from PHP. Instead, the Scala is a smaller one, even if the quality probably is higher, let's say. A lot of great stuff comes from the Scala community, so it's really kudos to that. PHP is an interpreted language on the other hand, so we don't have a compiler. If we are not cautious about them, we risk to do a lot of damage in production. Instead, we have a compiled language in Scala, so we are really confident when we are shipping stuff. PHP now is a weekly type language with the new versions. With the 8th version, the typing system is changing. And in Scala, we have a super type language, like we showed you before with Iron. Iron is really great. And PHP is not designed at all for functional programming. Instead, Scala offers a nice mix between the two worlds of object-oriented and functional programming. And last but not least, is not designed to be multi-threaded. PHP, sorry, runs on a single thread, so it's not the best one for performances. Instead, Scala handles the multi-threading without even noticing. With futures and so on, we handle without noticing. And the Scala syntax is very, very, very nice. So yeah, this is it. On the right, you can find a Google form to give you your feedback. Since it was my first talk, I want to refine a little bit. And on the right, you can find some information to stay in touch. Thank you.
ありがとうございます。とてもリアルな比較表でしたね。はい。では、質疑応答の方に移らさせていただきます。質問のある方は挙手の方をお願いいたします。
So, thank you very much for the presentation. I would be curious to know what your reaction was the first time you were exposed to SBT.
Is the same as now. I'm struggling. I'm still probably studying it a little bit. I've been working with Scala only for 2 years, so I'm still studying. And SBT it was a completely different world for me because I wasn't used to compiler and so on and build tools. So yeah, it was. I was shocked to summarize.
Kudos for you for sticking up with it and staying on the Scala world.
ありがとうございます。どうぞ。
Thanks for the talk. Do you miss any language feature that you have or that you had in PHP, which is not available in Scala? Is there one or more?
Good question. I haven't talked about that never. No, honestly, I don't think so. I no, more than the language, I miss the framework. Laravel, it was really, really amazing. And the documentation was great. I'm not saying that Scala is not great. I mentioned it, the Scala docs are great to learn, but Laravel is huge. You can set up payments with just 3 commands and so on. So if you need to ship faster in consultancy company, it's really great.
ありがとうございます。質問次、どうぞ。お願いします。
ありがとうございました。私も結構これ、学び始めて、すぐなんですけれども、こちらで結構スカラって数学的な概念とかも出てくると思うんですけれども、そちらを学ぶにあたって、ハードルになった点とか難しかったなっていうところあったりしましたか？
Okay, so you want to know about how I faced, for example, stuff like monoids and so on, right? Okay. Well, I probably still don't know very well, but I've read continuously the documentation. I've took some notes on Gitbook to summarize the concept in my own language. So probably no one of you could understand it, my GitHub notes. But yeah, I'm trying to and experimenting with Scala CLI to just write something and understand it. The same like of covariance and contravariance. I read it multiple times to understand it.
わかりました。ありがとうございます。
ありがとうございます。遠いんですが、お願いします。
Yeah, so I was wondering, Scala has this super rich collection library, but then also it's maybe intimidating that it has 10, 15, 20 different data types, whereas I believe PHP just has array, but also has associative keys. So in PHP, is it typical to just use these raw arrays, or is there like a collection concept around that as well?
Okay. To be honest, I always use the array with string keys, maybe, but yeah, there's no things like map, if I remember correctly, but probably could be that there is some library or I don't know.
So do you prefer the collection in Scala to that?
You don't need to ask it. I wouldn't be here anyway.
Nice.
ありがとうございます。他にも質疑ある方は挙手の方をお願いいたします。まだ時間が少々ありますので、よければどうぞ。あ、どうぞ。すみません、手前ですね。5列目赤い方。
今後こういう場面でスカラをもっと使っていきたいとか、あるいは逆に、こういう時は PHP を使っていきたいとかってありますか？
Oh, great question. Well, I always think that we should use languages based on the situation. So I honestly, my thoughts about that is that for my work, so in the company, I will work with Scala, also prototype, also for my side projects. Scala CLI is really nice, and we can do a lot of stuff. But PHP, for example, if I need to do, I don't know, I used to do a lot of back office for clients. So a back office with a front end where the user can see or buy stuff. For me, Laravel is faster, so I will do I will do with Laravel because I know it better to do this specific thing. Probably I would evaluate based on the need. I will do JavaScript, Scala, or PHP. It depends.
ありがとうございます。
ありがとうございます。それではお時間になりましたので、これにて発表の方終わりたいと思います。クリスチャン・レンティーノさん、発表ありがとうございました。